The Bard family lived at the place they called Barrelwood from 1876 to 1944. Thomas Bard arrived in San Buenaventura in January 1865 and built a house on Sulphur Mountain, Ojai. He moved to Hueneme about 1871 when he constructed a wharf for shipping. Upon his marriage to Molly Gerberdine in 1876, Thomas Bard built a home where the mansion is now located. By 1890, there were 7 children in the family. They outgrew the house and a second story was added. They enjoyed this home for 20 years, but in 1910, the Bards decided to build one more home. The 2-story Victorian building was taken down, and the redwood structural material was saved for use in the construction of the new building. In each of his homes, Bard used redwood from Northern California, from the Santa Cruz Mountains. The pilings for the Hueneme Wharf came from these groves as well. Those family members still at home moved with their parents to what they called the Bungalow while construction of the big house took place. Sisters Beryl and Anna moved in with their mother and father. Brother Phil visited from boarding school. Richard was in school in Mercersburg, Pennsylvania, and came home infrequently. This building was constructed entirely of salvaged redwood from the Victorian home that was razed. The family lived in the bungalow for 2 years and moved to the big house in 1912. The bungalow was quiet until 1916, until my mother Joan and father Richard made it their home. Richard was finishing his education at Princeton University when Senator Bard died in 1915. He had been chosen by his father to run the family business, the Barrelwood Investment Company. Richard married Joan Boyd in 1916, and the newlyweds moved into the bungalow to begin their life together at Barrelwood. I was born November 12, 1917, at St. John's Hospital in Oxnard, California. My mother's obstetrician was the well-known Dr. Livingston, and the good doctor utilized what was called twilight sleep and anesthesia for Joan Bard, my mother. I was brought back to the bungalow. The house consisted of a small sitting room, kitchen, a bedroom for my parents, small bedroom for my nurse, and a nursery for me. Behind the house were a series of small dwellings for help, including one for a cook for our household. The home was surrounded by the extensive botanic garden created by Thomas, and it was not far from the big house. Unfortunately, my grandfather died 2 years before I was born, so I never knew him. But my grandmother lived many more years in the big house, and I was able to spend time with her until 1936. The cozy redwood bungalow was home to me, my mother and father, for only a few short weeks, as soon my father left to fight in the First World War. But those early months were filled with visits from my mother Joan's family, who came from their home in Los Olivos often. I was named after my maternal grandfather's mother, becoming the 3rd Joanna in the family tree. We spent the spring and summer days of 1918 surrounded by the lush gardens with plants of many varieties, evergreens and tropical, rare and common, ferns and flowers. Later, my grandmother Bard taught me the botanical names, and I would recite them to her, following her wheelchair along the many paths. Within 2 years, my sister Kitty was born, and we would share my bedroom. Next, my brother Dick was born to become a member of our family, and my parents recognized the need to expand our little dwelling and add a second story. My father transformed the redwood bungalow to a Cape Cod-style building that may have reminded him of his years at Princeton. While this expansion was taking place, my mother took Kitty and me to stay in Santa Barbara at the Potter Hotel. The construction went quickly, and we soon returned with our new little brother to the bungalow, which now boasted a second story. My parents moved upstairs to their new master bedroom. Kitty and I joined them on this floor in a bedroom next to them, and Dick was welcomed to the nursery with Nurse once again in the room next to him. Dick and Joan's old bedroom on the first floor became a lovely room for guests. During the 1920s, as our family was growing, my father was pursuing the dream of his father and of his own to create what would become the harbor at Hueneme. He was often away in Washington, D.C., fighting for support to make this dream a reality. By 1926, there would be 4 children in our family, now 2 girls and 2 boys, with the addition of Brother Archie. Our playground was the immense expanse of our mysterious gardens, a magical world of hiding places for goblins and fairies, a place to become any mythical character we chose. For the boys, my father built a small train track near our home. The train, a small apricot drying apparatus, and it brought countless hours of exciting pleasure for Dick and Archie. We girls played with wonderful dolls we were given by our grandmother, sent from Germany, where her father was born. And we rode our bicycles for hours between our home and our grandmother's along the many paths. In 1928, my sister Margaret was born. The following year, I was sent to boarding school. One by one, my other 3 siblings went off to boarding schools. I went to the Santa Barbara School for Girls, Sister Kitty to the Catherine Branson School, and my brothers to Thatcher Boys School in Ojai. By the late 1940s, when I came for visits to Barrelwood, the barn was now being used as a site for parties and dances. Where once as a child I had swung on ropes and landed in piles of hay, now people visiting from Hollywood came and brought friends and musicians to enjoy the large and informal setting. I remember seeing Dolores Del Rio and her husband, Cedric Gibbons, driving up to the barn. She was considered at the time to be one of the most beautiful women in the world. He was the Irish-born, Academy Award-winning art director of over 1,000 films, including The Wizard of Oz, Grand Hotel, and the Philadelphia Stories. What a thrill for me. Born in St. John's Hospital in Oxnard. This was a 1-story redwood bungalow. I think the earliest memories is when Kitty came 2 years after me. An early memory holding me up as a child by the dining room window, and I heard this noise and he said, "Foghorn, foghorn." Ooh, a much darker room. It was all redwood walls, ceiling. I don't know where the lights were. And I just remember my dad's big, huge easy chair in this corner, and I always sat on an arm of it as he read books to me. I was the first of 5 children, so I had this all to myself. And I just didn't go in that part of the room much. And Mother's piano was there. She played the piano all the time. There were more rugs, lots of antique rugs all over the place. And that was Dad's private office and den. And I used to go peeking in there when I was a child to see. It was private to him, and we were sort of left out of it, weren't encouraged to go in. The walls were just lined with books on shelves there. And that was strictly Dad's department in there. Everything happened up at the barn there. That's where milk cows were. Our milk came from there. That's where our horses were kept. And there were 3 lovely fig trees planted outside. I spent hours climbing up and eating figs in the fig trees. The garden was a nice place for us to run away and hide. And we always had a nurse for the newest baby, and she trundled them through in a little cart, a little baby buggy, all over the garden. And one time a big sycamore tree fell. I think it was on that side of the house. And that was exciting. And we have a photo of my sister and me climbing up and sitting on this huge broken tree. So there were about 2 or 3 gardeners that we would encounter on our walks through the garden. And when my brothers came, they loved to climb trees. So I remember Dick and Archie looking down at us from those trees. One thing we loved to do was go up to the redwood trees and pick branches because they smelled so good. And then there was a big violet patch in front of my grandmother's house where we just loved to pick bunches of violets, both purple and then sometimes white violets, double whites. Oh, the owls. Nighttime, when I stayed up later than my little siblings who would come after me, and I used to lean on the windowsill and heard the owls, and they were a mournful sound. Ooh, ooh, ooh. And I tried to see them, but it was dark. I'd hear them wings flapping by. So it was not a dull place to live. There was always something going on. And then I think Dad had a tennis court put in beyond my grandmother's house. When we were old enough, we would hit the tennis balls there. And then there was a wonderful, God, I can't remember what kind of nuts, a nut tree, and we used to go and scramble for nuts to eat, pine nuts, yeah. And of course there were large grapevines growing. And we eat grapes. There's plenty to eat in our garden. My grandmother was an invalid. I don't know what she had, and she had a caregiver always with her. And we went to meals at what we called the big house. And that was always something special because she had a Chinese cook and another man servant in the kitchen. And they had little houses to live in behind grandmother's house on the way to the barn. I'm standing by a staircase which wasn't here at all when I was a little child, and my first bedroom was there, opposite. Next to it was a nurse's room, and then a closet into the kitchen. And down this hall, without the staircase, it just went straight down there, and then to the right was a large bedroom for my parents. And this was a closet. Mother spent a lot of time. I think there may have been a phone in there at one time. However, when the third child came, that's when they had to go up and put another story. Straight up. So the staircase came. And we always had a nurse, whatever child came. So there always had to be an extra little room for a nurse. So that's the story. Kitty and I were in this together. Then there was a bathroom. And then a room for little Dick near his parents. Then, when Archie came, what could they do but put another story up there? So the house grew as the children did. Kitty and I went upstairs, and then we always got to fighting, and I wanted a room of my own, so they kind of dug into the rafters in the second floor, and they made a little room for me. You could see the windows looking out. And then, when my sister and I got to fighting, they fixed this little room for me. Yes, here we are, looking out. There's a wonderful garden leading up to the barn where the horses were. Davy wasn't here, so there were no houses. Those were just bare fields out there. That was the back road into the property from Pleasant Valley Road, and all the trucks and people that wanted to go to the barn had to go in there. We called it the back road. That was an elongated, built for the kitchen, for the cook, and then her quarters. And then it stretched on much longer, and it was all storage. Storage for the family. The cars were always parked up at the barn. There was a garage there, and Dad's car was always driven down and parked in front of the front door for him every day. They had to see that it was gassed up and everything was working. The little town of Hueneme was not grown up, so out there were nothing but fields, bean fields. And if you went out that road, it didn't even have a harbor. You just went down to sand hills all over, and a lighthouse. And that was one of our Sunday drives. Every Sunday, Dad took us somewhere new. And the first one I remember, down the little town of Hueneme, and then out over some, lagoons to the lighthouse. And there was a little patch of dirt and garden around it, and there were sheep feeding off that. And we went into the lighthouse, and Dad knew the lighthouse keeper, and we walked up some stairs to look at the Fresnel, F-R-E-S-N-E-L, light, which was magnificent. Went round and round. That was one Sunday drive. Another, we went down along the coast to what was called the Japanese fish camp. It's now Point Magoo, but it was just a huge row of sand hills all the way down. And I remember hearing during Prohibition, that's where the rum runners came in to deliver whatever they were selling offshore. They'd come in and sell it to somebody, and it'd go on to Oxnard, Camarillo. Santa Paula. So it was a kind of an exciting place to live. There was only the wharf, no harbor yet, and just one thing that people just wonder at is that when I was 4 years old, I had a nurse. She wanted to take me down to see the filming of The Sheik, which was a very early film. And I saw Arabs with turbans and the long material that flew out from the back, galloping over the sandhills. I can still see it in my head when I'm almost 100. So that was just fun. That was wonderful. There was no Silver Strand, Hollywood Beach, Hollywood by the sea, only down at the beach and the boardwalk that went down to Henry Horsewood's, which was a, I don't know, it's a getaway. People who come and rent a cottage there and swim. And I can remember when that first train came in. There was no train in my youth. And then when the train came, Josephine Sullivan, one of my classmates who lived near a lagoon in the town, she and I crept out on the tracks of the train and hid there on the trestle for the excitement of feeling the train going by. So there was a lot of excitement here. And I'm sorry I can't recognize the ocean front anymore. It's all gone since they put in the harbor. Down at the end of Pleasant Valley Road, it ended up in Sandhills. I was sent away to boarding school when I was sneaking out of my house, which was this house, going down the back road to Pleasant Valley Road, and a friend, a boy, would stop his car and I'd get in for I think there was a girl with him too, and we went joyriding around. So here I am at the top of the stairs looking into my mother and dad's room, and across from that was my brother Dick's room. So it was a happy house. We had a garden to look at, and we could sort of disappear and hide in the garden. And then if we ran out like I did down the back road, I went joyriding with one of my schoolmates. There's always something exciting to do. It's a wonderful place to live, and I hope the Navy enjoys it.